This is Environmental Science 2, Chapter 11, Part 1 on energy. In this portion of the video lecture, we will be discussing fossil fuels and how they produce electricity. The reason why we use fossil fuels, it's a very cost-efficient way to transport very large amount of energies to homes, schools, public buildings, and the like. An electric generator converts mechanical energy to electrical energy. So what we do with electrical generators is the coal burning process moves that turbine to generate that mechanical energy to produce electrical energy, and it's dispersed from generator stations. So our main fossil fuel sources are coal, oil, and natural gas. We have these fossil fuels because the plants and animals from millions of years ago became buried and deposited, and the organic materials in the decaying organisms transformed into solid carbon. So fossil fuels are very rich in carbon compounds. Remember, carbon is a very versatile element, and it bonds very strongly to other elements. So strong bonds mean lots of stored energy, and likewise, when the chemical reaction happens, lots of energy is released. So we burn our fossil fuels to produce electricity at power plants. And of course, we also use them to power our cars and other forms of transportation. At this time, fossil fuels are our main source of energy. Generally, about 90% of the energy that we need would require fossil fuels or some other types of alternative energies. The problem with fossil fuels, they are a non-renewable resource. We are using the fossil fuels faster than the Earth can replenish those. Because the fossil fuels are from the remains of ancient plants and animals, it takes a very long time for the Earth to create those fossil fuels from the remains of those organisms. It's not something that can happen in 100 years or 200 years. It takes hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years for the Earth to make fossil fuels out of the remains of plants and animals. Our oil reserves are at a low. More than likely, out of the oil, coal, and natural gas, oil will be the most likely of the fossil fuels to be used up first. Of course, the main problem with fossil fuel burning that we learned in our last unit was that it causes carbon dioxide levels to increase in the atmosphere. So it increases the levels of some of those greenhouse gases. The price of oil is really influencing research for alternatives, and we will discuss alternative energy sources in our next section. There are some possibilities of new deposits of fossil fuels that we have explored and found. There is oil fields that are in Alaska, as well as northern Russia near Siberia. The Anwar wilderness area is very close to the Prudhoe Bay oil field in Alaska. And there is a lot of environmental concerns with drilling in Alaska for oil because of the very sensitive environment in those areas. Also for the fact that drilling can be very costly. Once the fossil fuels are found, that costs money for research as well, and then the other expense is getting them out of the ground. So it is a very expensive process. Not only does the equipment is expensive to find the fossil fuels under the ground, but then getting them out and extracting them through oil rigs and derricks is a very expensive process. Again, there's the concern of the environment. Habitats are destroyed if there is leakage in the oil pipes that are taking the oil from the reserve to the refinery. If those break or become damaged, we can get contamination of groundwater supplies. And if you remember from way back in 9th grade, when we talked about groundwater takes a very long time to filter itself and to clean itself. So once contamination of groundwater supplies happens, it can take a very long time to reverse that damage. And remember, groundwater is where the majority of people get their public drinking water supplies. This has been Chapter 11, Part 1 on energy.